Many people would consider 2007 to be one of the best years in video games, with titles such as Halo 3, Call of Duty 4, and Super Mario Galaxy taking well-established franchises to new heights, and new IPs such as Bioshock, Mass Effect, and Portal giving us outstanding new game experiences for the present and the future. The 7th generation of video game consoles was hitting its stride, and leading the charge was Microsoft's Xbox 360. Well, if you discount Nintendo dunking on everyone with the Wii, or ignoring the fact that the PS3 eventually outsold the 360, but this was 2007, baby! Alongside the Xbox 360, Microsoft launched the Xbox Live Arcade, a service where developers can release smaller scale titles for a lower price than a standard retail game, about $10 to $15. Over 700 games were released through Xbox Live Arcade during its lifespan, and the service saw its own share of standout titles during its existence, such as Geometry Wars, Shadow Complex, Super Meat Boy, and Limbo. A few titles that made it onto the XBLA service were games that advertised products in the real world. These were called adver games, and the most prominent provider of said games was Doritos, who released free-to-play games such as Doritos Crash Course, Dash of Destruction, and Harm's Way. However, the very first example of an adver game releasing on Xbox Live Arcade is the subject of today's video. Enter Toyota. If you know your cars, you have undoubtedly heard of Toyota. Based out of Japan, Toyota is one of the largest manufacturers of cars in the world, producing about 10 million vehicles on average per year. Toyota also holds the crown for the best-selling brand of car in the world thanks to the Toyota Corolla. Toyota also has a rich history in the world of motorsport, with multiple championships in the WRC, and 5 consecutive Le Mans victories between 2018 and 2022. Heck, even by 2007 they were competing in Formula 1, becoming a solid team in its own right despite lacking any race victories. It makes sense then that Toyota would be involved with the multitude of racing games available at the time, especially since many people consider 2007 to be in the middle of the golden era of racing games, with series such as Gran Turismo, Forza Motorsport, and Need for Speed hitting their peaks. Toyota, not content with having their cars advertised in these games, decided to have a crack at producing their own game, using the relatively new Xbox Live Arcade as a method of distribution. With Toyota's vast motorsport history, it's not a completely far-fetched idea for them to release their own video game. Maybe they could make a racing game that paid homage to their motorsport achievements, or produce a game to tie into their current Formula 1 project perhaps. Well, they decided to do neither of those things, and instead decided to advertise one of their consumer cars. Which one, you may ask? Well...
Are you fucking shitting me?
Yaris was developed by Backbone Entertainment and was released exclusively on the Xbox 360 via Xbox Live Arcade on October 10th, 2007. The game was released for free and was designed to advertise the Yaris model of cars in North America, which in Japan was called the Belter. The game at its core is a combat racing game that basically runs on rails. The car auto-accelerates through a set course, with the course being essentially a series of tubes, and the driving gameplay not being too dissimilar to the special stages from Sonic 2. The driving mechanics are limited exclusively to the left stick, with left and right controlling the car's position and up and down controlling the car's speed. Despite the game being advertised as a racing game, you're not actually racing against anyone else, in single player anyway. Instead, your goal is to complete 3 laps of the course you're on, collecting as many coins as you can along the way. No time limit, no opponents, just complete 3 laps. Sounds easy, right? Well, now it's time to introduce the combat section of the game. Your car comes equipped with this appendage, which wouldn't look out of place in a hentai, let's be honest, called a Mechano-Symbiont. Leave it to the Japanese to give a robot arm an extravagant name. This robot arm acts as your car's weapon, firing lasers at the obstacles and enemies in your way. You can add additional weapons to your arsenal by collecting weapon pickups dropped by certain enemies, which include a Gatling laser, a rocket launcher, and even a gun that fires saw blades. Aiming is done entirely via the right stick and the triggers fire your weapons. It's very simplistic controls for the concept, but it's serviceable enough. At this point, you're surely wondering, what sort of enemies could a Japanese sedan possibly have? Well, we got an animal rights nightmare, a small toaster on stilts, a giant toaster on stilts, Cyberpunk Australia, the coolest dog ever, bootleg Duolingo, the Twitch content you've been binging, and wrestlers who've been forced down the wrong career path. I seriously have no idea what sort of thinking went into these enemy designs, but I strangely kinda love them. Yaris features 3 different models of the titular car. Your starter car is the 3-door liftback, with an option to upgrade to the 4-door sedan, and eventually the 4-door sports sedan. From what I've seen, the only thing different about the 3 cars is that the sedans have more top speed, but since there's no time limit to each of the stages, switching cars is kinda pointless unless you're going for the achievements, which I'll touch upon later. Something that is not pointless is the upgrade system, where the coins collected from the levels you complete, you can spend them to upgrade your vehicle. First up are the wheels, which increase your acceleration and top speed. Next is the weapon storage upgrade, which allows you to, well, store more weapons at once, giving you more offensive power. And finally, and probably most importantly, is the shield strength upgrade, which gives you more health and allows you to take more hits from enemies. Upgrades are tied to each car, so if you swap cars later on, you'll need to buy the upgrades again. The game consists of 8 courses in total, with the goal of every course being to complete 3 laps, as I mentioned earlier. The exceptions to this are levels 4 and 8, which feature bosses you have to defeat once you've completed the 3 laps. If you die during any of these levels, you must restart from the beginning of the level, and all the coins you've collected up to that point will be lost. And that pretty much sums up Yaris. It's a simplistic car combat game where you're basically on a semi-autopilot, driving around in circles shooting all the enemies on screen. To me, it kind of feels like a shmup, except it's 3D, the gameplay design makes me think there should be a blue hedgehog and orange fox running around, and you're driving a car attached with something that really should be censored. Still, for free, it seems like a harmless, if kinda weird game that advertises Toyota cars. What's the worst that can possibly happen? Oh. So yeah, despite this game releasing for free, it got ripped to shreds by the critics. In fact, it got ripped so hard that it currently stands as the 2nd worst rated game on Metacritic, being spared its blushes by Family Party on the Wii U. My favourite review of Yaris actually comes from the highest rated one, still a 30% score mind you, which says, "As the title is completely free, you should ask yourself different questions related to value. For instance, is the title worth the 17.5 seconds it will take to download it? That's a tough one. You could take out the trash in that amount of time, a much more rewarding task than playing Yaris." Ouch. But hey, I ain't gonna let a few negative reviews stop me. I played Sonic 06 to completion, heck, I played Ride to Hell Retribution to completion. So let's pick up the Xbox 360 controller and play some Yaris. This game is free and I still want my money back. So after playing through all 8 courses and unlocking the majority of the achievements, I will sadly have to agree with the critics on this one. The game is indeed a dumpster fire, which is kind of amusing considering the literal dumpster on wheels that appears in the game as an enemy. It's a shame too, because when you initially load up the game, the menus look nice and clean, and the menu music, while repetitive, is inoffensive. There's even some cute stuff in the options menu, look at that. However, when we actually get into the gameplay itself, everything goes majorly downhill. First off, the graphics. They look like they came straight from the PS1 era, and that isn't a compliment. There's little to no detail in the background, the tracks themselves look basic and uninspired, with every course looking the exact same, except with a slightly different Instagram filter for each one. The car itself is pretty much a PNG image with no lighting or reflections at all. Heck, there's not even any animation for steering the car, with the only animation being saved for the appendage sticking out the front of it. Even the enemies, which I still do kinda love for their uniqueness, are still of low quality and end up adding to what is already a very ugly game. As for the audio, well, there's not much audio to talk about really. There are a grand total of 3, yes 3, music tracks in the whole game. One for the menu, one for the gameplay, and another one saved for the bosses on levels 4 and 8. While the music isn't horrible by itself, listening to the same music over and over again as you go through this game will become very tiring. The sound effects aren't anything to write home about either, with some generic sounds for the weapons and enemies, so I don't doubt you'll want to mute the game entirely at some point. Of course, I've saved the worst for last, which is the gameplay itself. It's repetitive and monotonous at best, and outright broken at worst. The aiming is some of the floatiest I've ever seen in a game, with the cursor seeming to snap to certain locations on the screen rather than having a fluid motion. The fact that the cursor doesn't adjust itself when you move either makes aiming at enemies particularly jarring. The difficulty level also spikes up as you go through the courses, with the first couple of levels being manageable, but once you get to level 4, suddenly it feels like you've been thrown into a Toho stage, making grinding the earlier levels for coins. Why is there a giant 8-ball on the track? So you can upgrade your car a necessity. Unless of course you realise you can cheese every level by basically staying on the extreme left or right of the level. Oops. So that, my friends, is Yaris. It's a repetitive, ugly, near unbroken mess of a game that well deserves its status of being one of the worst rated games of all time. At least with previous bad games I've played, I could still laugh and somewhat appreciate what they were trying to do. With Yaris, however, there is none of that. Nothing works here. I don't get what they were trying to do. This game was supposed to advertise a Yaris car to potential real-world buyers, but I don't know, I might just go with a Honda after playing this. Side note, I can't actually drive. Oh yeah, there is a multiplayer mode in this game, but... yeah, I'm not surprised really. I suppose I should mention the achievements too, since I've been known to cover achievements on this channel. As with all Xbox Live Arcade games at the time, Yaris comes with 12 achievements worth 200 gamer score. And I'm not even joking when I say that the achievements probably have more effort put into them than the game itself. There's 2 achievements tied to beating the bosses on levels 4 and 8, with another achievement requiring you to beat all the levels and finishing the final boss with full shields, all the while not quitting the dashboard once. There's 2 achievements tied to completing levels as fast as possible, with one requiring you to complete a level in under 3 minutes, and another one for completing all levels with a total time of under 40 minutes. If you utilise the cheese method of sticking to the side throughout each level, this shouldn't be too much trouble. Another achievement is to reach 250 miles per hour in the Yaris and then complete the level. You really expect me to believe a Yaris can go over 250 miles per hour? This will require you to upgrade to the sports sedan and use the highest level tyres, as I mentioned earlier. There's also an achievement for gathering every weapon in the game, which again you must do without going back to dashboard, although you can easily farm this by killing certain enemies in the earlier levels. Then there's 2 achievements related to coins, with one asking you to gather 1000 coins, and the other one requires you to get 1,000,000 coins. I guess they really were desperate to get people to play this turd as much as possible, eh? The final 3 achievements all tie into the online mode, with one asking you simply to complete an online game, another requiring you to win a ranked match, and the last achievement tasking you to complete the final boss in multiplayer. As you saw earlier though... yeah, good luck getting those. That's all I can say about Yaris really. That's it. That's the entire game. That being said, if you've seen this video and for some reason decided you want to subject yourself to the same hell I did, well, you actually can't. Yaris lasted barely a year on the Xbox Live Marketplace before being delisted, either due to expiring licenses or because the game is shit. However, there is still a way to play this game on an unmodded Xbox 360 console, if you really want to. The way Xbox Live Arcade works is that every game has to have a trial version. This trial version basically downloads the full game, but with a timer or a block in the game that prompts you to buy the full version once the timer expires, or you hit said block in the game. At this point, when you buy the full game, you essentially download a key that unlocks the full version of the game and ties it to your Xbox Live account. However, with games such as Yaris, there's no unlock key needed since the full game is free anyway. So, if you take a USB drive, format it using your Xbox 360, plug it into your PC, download the game off the internet, copy the game to the USB drive in a specific folder, and then plug the USB drive back into your 360, you can load up Yaris and play it for yourself, no strings attached. This also works with other free Xbox Live Arcade titles that are actually worth playing, such as Dash of Destruction and Swing. And with that, my time with Yaris is at an end, and thank goodness it is. It's a repetitive train wreck of a game that really gives you no joy in playing it. You could probably laugh at how bad it is for about 5 minutes before literally wanting to do anything else. I suppose the only use it has is to be a great case study on how not to make an advertising game. Although, with the way advertising in video games is going nowadays, maybe soon we'll be crying out for the days of games like Yaris. As for Toyota, believe it or not, they never commissioned another game after Yaris, instead deciding to go with the tried and tested formula of licensing their cars out for racing games. Except they even stopped doing that in the mid-2010s, with Toyota cars suddenly not showing up in franchises like Forza or Need for Speed. A now deleted tweet implied that Toyota did not want their cars associated with illegal street racing, but they quickly backtracked on that statement, instead implying that Sony had some form of exclusivity deal with Toyota for their Gran Turismo series. Since then, Toyota has returned to the Forza franchise, but still remains absent from Need for Speed to this day, maybe proving that the associating with illegal street racing thing may be true after all. You know what, screw Toyota and screw cars in general, I'm just gonna go take the bus from now on.